Good morning, good afternoon, and good evening. Welcome to our Open Up live talk show. My name is Tobias Sivakumar, and I am one of the Youth Wing coordinators at Voice of Men 360. I am currently a grade 12 student who will be pursuing an undergraduate degree in social sciences and humanities this fall at the University of Toronto. I have been advocating for mental health since the start of my high school career, joining clubs and initiatives which will outline the importance of mental health. Let me share a brief intro about Voice of Men 360, International Men's Day, and why this talk show, Open Up, is important and what it is about. Voice of Men 360 is a non-profit organization founded in 2020 and is based in Toronto, Canada. Voice of Men 360 organization was born out of seeing a tremendous need and stepping up to help provide services to help support and overcome both men and boys' life challenges. We are part of International Men's Day. International Men's Day has been serving for over 21 years so far, and in 90 countries around the world join together doing various activities regularly. IMD follows six pillars, which is the overall well being of boys and men. We follow in the same footsteps. So, why open up? Why is this show important? Because we, men, do not open up our hearts and are willing to share our matters with anyone. When we keep our emotional challenges within ourselves for a long time, at some points it will explode and it will affect our health conditions in many ways. That is why we want to create an open space and allow an individual to share their life journey through our platform. We aim to create awareness about the life challenges, struggles, overcomings, ups and downs that our boys and men go through in their lives. There are no limitations with gender, age, nationality, or ethnic group with sharing your life journey. All walks of life can participate. Our goal is to make a positive impact on someone's life through this program. Open Up is on Sundays in the morning from 10 a.m. to 10:30 a.m. Eastern Time. Each week, we will bring a new individual and share their life experiences with you. So today we have our special guest, Dr. Prerana Rudrapatna. Her professional and personal experiences manifest in her multifaceted diagnostic understanding. She aims to broaden her perspective of cultural-based healthcare and integrate knowledge into clinical practice. Dr. Prerana is passionate about empowering individuals and communities to lead healthy lifestyles and look forward to diversifying her knowledge and skill set to better achieve this goal. Dr. Prerana hopes to combine her passions for clinical medicine and public health and aspires to be a healthcare professional with a social conscience. Her experience in treating patients who are victims of violence reveals that medicine transcends the clinic setting and cannot be practiced without addressing social injustice. We'd like to welcome Dr. Prerana Rudrapatna to Open Up. Thank you for joining us today and are being so willing to share your life journey with us.
Hi, thank you so much for having me. It's a pleasure to be here.
How are you doing today, Doctor?
I'm doing well, thank you. Enjoying the sunshine. It's a good Sunday.
This is true. Very nice weather today. So thank you again for joining us today on our show. And I'm just going to start by asking you a couple questions, which will give us a bit more of an in-depth idea of your experiences. So let me start by taking you back to your childhood.
Sure.
What were some of the incidents that happened in your childhood where you were, say, 5, 10, or 15 years old that influences or inspires you into what you are doing now, whether that be in your profession, your position, or your education?
Yeah, so it's hard to sort of think back, but I think medicine was something that was always a popular career option for a lot of South Asians, or I think Asians in general. So I do recall learning about different careers back when I was 5 years old. My dad was actually a pharmaceutical sales rep, so he was very into, promoting health and medicine. My uncle was actually a doctor as well. But I remember, being told to pursue medicine. I remember dressing up in my uncle's white coat, and my dad had me standing next to a poster of this pharmaceutical that he was promoting, and had my stethoscope, and it was very cute. It was very, I guess, inspirational for other family members around me. But for me personally, I don't really recall those incidents too much. I was young, I think. I only remember them now because I see pictures and stories were told to me. So now I remember, oh, yeah, okay. I guess I did dress up like that. But I remember wanting to actually be a teacher. That was one of the first things that I was interested in, along with astronaut. We had just learned about careers in school. I think I was in grade 1. And I remember being very enthralled with science, astronauts. And I think I admired my teachers. So I wanted to be a teacher. But through medicine, I've actually seen that I am able to fulfill those roles as well. So I have been a tutor within the medical industry as well for colleagues studying for the medical board exams. And I feel like I'm a teacher to a lot of patients, all the time, sort of influencing them to improve their health. So I am still able to fulfill all those pieces that I enjoyed. But I think the first memory of me wanting to be a physician actually happened after I was in medical school, not so much early on. I think medicine is a career that is so overwhelming that it's hard to grasp exactly what it entails until you're into it. But that definitely influences in my childhood.
You mentioned wanting to be a teacher when you were younger. And
Mhm.
in terms of being a teacher and a doctor, in one way or another, they both involve the idea of educating people. Do you
Right.
think that was one of those things that sort of propelled you into going into medical school and pursuing medicine?
Um, No. I think what propelled me into going into medical school was the type of interaction I would have with other people, being able to influence another individual's life on such vulnerable topics. So I think in that regard, it is the same as a teacher. I think teachers are involved, especially if you're teaching younger children. You're involved in such a vulnerable period of these people's lives. So I think for me, that was the fundamental thing, being that privilege of being involved in somebody else's life on matters that are so intimate, such as their health. I think the satisfaction I gained from that and being able to influence their health outcomes or listen and provide insight to health outcomes, I think that was what solidified it for me.
Hmm. Okay. Um, during your time in school, whether it be high school or university, what were some challenges that you faced as a young woman?
Um, I think as a young South Asian woman specifically, you're expected to be very intelligent and smart and achieve the highest of the high grades. And quite frankly, I didn't always get the highest grades. I I did well. I would do high B's, like B plus, A minus. That's usually where I hovered around. Math, I was definitely C, maybe a D. The subjects that I liked were arts. I liked French. I liked the health and sciences, but I never was high achieving in that regard, or so I thought. So I think that was a huge challenge. And I remember actually with my medical school roommate, she and I were having this conversation. She was African American, and she faced her own challenges in that no one expected her to even get into medical school. So she had this pressure on herself to perform and do well. And I remember telling her, in the same token, everybody expects an Indian woman, South Asian woman to do really, really good in school. So I have the same pressure as well. And if I, for some reason, don't measure up and I fall short based on the societal standards, then it hits really hard. I remember when other students did better in school, or I got in trouble for not having the highest grades, or even when I got older, I put that shame onto myself when I saw other people performing really well. So I think that was maybe the biggest challenge, um, accepting those standards that are placed on you, or learning to break those standards.
I feel like I can definitely understand that, especially being the firstborn of two immigrant parents. You know, they come from third world countries trying to escape whatever was happening back home, and there is a lot of that pressure
Yeah.
to do well because they want the best for you.
Right.
And as much as they do want the best for you, sometimes I can that pressure does kind of get to you in a way where it can affect your mental health,
Oh yeah.
especially in like the in times of university when university level work is very difficult.
Yes. Yes, I definitely agree. I know they do want the best for you. But I think we sort of forget sometimes that wanting the best for someone, sometimes that might be leaving them alone and letting them do their own thing and figure it out. Because that added stress in and of itself is a burden that's not going to help the solution. You're probably spending more time in your own head worrying about what other people are going to think as opposed to actually trying to find solutions, to help yourself. So there is that extra pressure for sure.
Hmm. Can you share any memories that you have of your father-daughter relationship?
Yeah. So there's so many. It's hard to think of. I remember when we were in India, um, that so my dad always used to go out and eat the street food. And this is a memory that I don't even know if I fully remember or he's telling me and then I remember, but I do recall him wanting to go out and get street food like pan. And I don't know if you know what pan is, but it's like a green leaf and then they put all these things in there. But there's a specific thing they put in there called gulkan, which is like rose petals, like dried up rose petals mixed with like sugar and honey. That I really loved. So I do remember, him picking me up from somewhere, I don't know, going out, and he would get the pan, and I would be so eager because I wanted that sugar rose petal thing that was part of it. So I definitely recall that. I also recall one time, and this is probably one of the most random and probably the best memories. He came to just pick up my brother and I from school randomly in the middle of the day. He just said, "Let's go. We're gonna go to a movie." So he just randomly picked us up in the middle of the day, didn't care about anything, and we went to go watch Princess Diaries at rush hour. So those were exciting moments. There were times when I got scolded as well. I think I do recall. And those are kind of blurs of getting in trouble. But I do recall getting in trouble for not having the highest grades, um, and sort of. And I remember the grades being like in the 80s. I think this was in high school, maybe just 80, and it was a question of, oh, how come you didn't get, 90, or who got the 80 in the rest of the class. So I do remember those memories as well. There's definitely a mix.
Having a little sister, I definitely see a lot of that father-daughter, daddy's little girl type relationship in my family as well. So a lot of those smaller memories that you have, I feel like I can relate to a couple.
Mm.
Um, so our next question is, sorry, our next question is, based on your experiences, what are some of the major challenges that boys and men in our society face today?
I think the biggest challenge boys and men probably face are the pressure to be boys and men, this gender defined role. That's probably a male dominated role. And that's often assumed to be you have to be strong physically, you have to be outspoken, you have to be the one calling all the shots. I think that is a common what do you call it, standard that men are supposed to live up to. And actually, on the same token, women are not supposed to be like that, outspoken, strong, running the show. So I think actually, to speak to a challenge, I consider myself a strong, confident woman, and in the South Asian culture that might not always be well viewed, or that might not be the norm. So when a woman does speak up and stuff, then the male counterpart might not know how to respond because this is new and surprising. So I think the biggest challenge would be for the men and the boys to understand that even if they take a different approach, maybe a less assertive, less domineering approach, that won't take away from their definition of being men and boys. Um, Being comfortable with allowing someone else to lead, or even being comfortable in being in a partnership, whether it be brother, sister, father, daughter, uncle, niece, anything, learning that it's okay to have a different dynamic, I think is probably the biggest challenge.
Speaking sort of off what you were talking about dynamics, um, in society mainly we have various sayings like "Oh, boys don't cry," or one I've heard is "You hit like a girl." With these sort of social boundaries that kind of keep both genders in their own various stereotypes, do you think there are maybe ways, like you said, other ways to sort of break down those barriers of gender-based stereotypes?
Yeah, I think one biggest and the simplest thing is acknowledging the way we speak, right? So next time when you're wanting to say something like, "Oh, you hit like a girl," just pause and think, what is the message you're actually trying to convey? Are you trying to convey that, the hit wasn't forceful enough? Then why don't you just say, "Oh, that was such a soft hit. Why don't you hit harder?" As opposed to associating a gender to that. I think that's something I've tried to do. And people always say like grow a pair, and they always refer to a male body part. So instead of that, that implies that the only way for somebody to be bold and confident is to be a man. So I think acknowledging yourself and stopping perpetuating those stereotypes is a good first step, especially with the younger generations. So I think that would be a good first step to break down those barriers.
hmm Okay, so our last question for today is: Are there any unforgettable stories or situations you've been in that you would like to share today?
Unforgettable. um, it can be with anything, like my personal life
Yeah,
or
it could be anything that you face in your personal life or something that you faced in your profession. Just anything that comes off as a very bold word, unforgettable.
yeah, I mean, as soon as you said that, the first thing that sort of came to my mind was when I was working in Chicago. I was training at a hospital, which often at Cook County Hospital. So if you've heard anything about Chicago, it's very violence plagued, gunshots, lots of violence, right? Trauma. And I was working in the hospital for my trauma rotation, and we had a patient come in that was pretty much dead on arrival. And it gets really graphic, but I remember him coming in and we had to do what was called a cardiac massage. So we tried CPR, basic revival to help him, but it wasn't working. And when that doesn't work, the most extreme measure we go to is called a thoracotomy, where we cut open his chest and then we'll take his heart out. And I was manually pumping his heart. That's called a cardiac massage. That was probably the most intense experience of my life. Um, and that's when I realized that your heart muscle is so delicate yet so strong, because I was thinking in my head, oh my gosh, this is someone's heart. Oh my gosh, I have to be gentle. I have to be gentle. And I'm holding it in my hand. But then the surgeons and the nurses are telling me to press harder, to pump harder, because the amount of pressure that I was applying was not enough. And they were yelling to me that, I can be more forceful and the heart will be able to take it. So that was such a very surreal experience for me. Medically, I learned so many different things. Spiritually, thinking about the heart and how delicate yet strong it was. I think that was probably the most intense, memorable experience of my life. I'll never forget that experience.
Yeah, that in itself, just listening to that is very much, I guess, very very grotesque in a way.
Yes, a little
In the media, yeah.
bit.
In the media, you see things like, Grey's Anatomy, for example, but then you hear it from real life medical professionals, and they're two very, very different things. And I personally, I very much respect people in medical because it's one of those jobs where you have to be able to handle what you see every day, and get up the next day and go back to work. So honestly, I really have no words for that story. Uh, but to sort of conclude, Dr. Prerana, it is not easy to talk about it, about everything that you do, and not everyone is willing to share their personal life stories, experiences, and struggles. I do appreciate your courage and your willingness to help other men by sharing your life struggles and challenges. And thank you for joining us, sharing your life journey with us today. When people like yourself come forward and share your life experiences on platforms like ours, especially on social media, it will give some hope to someone out there that, to change their mindset and to hopefully change their life towards a more positive direction. So before we wrap up, is there anything you'd like to say?
Yeah, I just want to thank you and thank you for having this platform. Everything you just said, it does take a lot of courage. Even myself, as much as I did reveal, there was a filter in the back of my mind thinking, oh, who's going to listen to this? Watch what I say. I'm on camera. I'm a professional. I'm South Indian. There's lots of different filters that we'll have, when we're speaking. I would encourage everybody to find that safe space to release these emotions, release these feelings, anything that it is. So I want to thank you for having that platform, for it being a safe space. And if people don't have a safe place to go for that, then I would encourage them to journal and just write it out for themselves. They don't have to keep it. They can write it and then rip it up and throw it away. But the act of releasing that will significantly help you health wise and just mentally, emotionally as well. Releasing it instead of holding on to it, in your heart and in your body, I think will be definitely helpful. So thank you so much for allowing me to share and for having this organization for the public.
Thank you again. And with that, today with Voice of Men 360, that was our segment of Open Up. Thank you for joining us, and I hope you enjoy your day.
Thanks, you too.